Lisa Patz.
Let me give it to my, you got that good, got that good, baby, don't you?
It's your good sis Lisa Patz back at it again with another hair video, this time for these viral tribal braids. Let's go! So I had braided my hair down the night before, and we started off by just taking these braids out. I made sure my hair was really detangled and stretched. It's really hard to do your hair when it's like in its curly state, so please make sure your hair is stretched and detangled like mine. Then we start the parting process. So I just kind of broke this down in my head, and I decided to start at the front because I thought it'd be easier, especially because the front is so intricate of this hairstyle. So I started by parting from the middle of my head to my ears, and then I used Shine and Jam to get that line really sharp. And as I was parting, I realized that I wanted to have as much space as possible at the top of my head, so I kind of parted from the back of my ear to the middle of my head and then continued that across to the other side. Here I'm using my FELICA Leatherwood brush to detangle my hair, make sure it's fully brushed out, no tangles in sight at all. It makes it just so much easier to do the parting on this hairstyle. And for my inspiration, these were my two inspirations, mainly just like the braiding pattern. I think they've done it so beautifully, and I just was referencing them throughout the whole process to make sure that I got it how I wanted it to look. Use Shining Jam. Use a lot of it. I used so much Shine and Jam, I think I went through like a whole tub, because getting your parts really straight, you just need to make sure that your hair is as smooth as possible. So for this triangle section, I tried to replicate the kind of shape that I saw on those lovely ladies. So just making sure that that triangle is quite thin at the front and then wider at the back, so that the braids have that kind of tapered look to them as well. And I've parted not only from the front to the back, but the back to the front, to try and get this line as sharp as I possibly could. I used so many different ways of parting with the brush and with the comb, and I ended up using my rat tail comb because the rat tail comb is undefeated. It's the best one. I found it really difficult with this brush actually. I don't know how like these hairdressers be doing it with this brush. I think in theory it's really good, but in reality it's actually really difficult. So here you can see the rat tail comb is back in action. My favorite method to part my hair. Just it's unmatched. Once you're happy with your hair part, then you want to just continue to separate the rest of your hair and put it away so that it's not in the way whilst you're doing the braids. And I just kind of twisted them and tied them down. I ended up coming back the next day. I had started doing some of the braids and I wasn't happy with them, so I'm going to redo those after I finish these other two. But yeah, you could just see how thick they are, and they're just way too thick for this hairstyle. So here I'm just parting off that other two braids in the section, making sure that that line is really sharp, and using my rat tail comb again. And then for each braid, I made sure that the line was really sharp before I did anything else. It just makes it so much easier to put that other hair away and then focus on one braid. And then for this braid, every single time that I did a braid, I would brush out my hair, put Shine and Jam throughout the whole section, all of my hair from root to tip, and then start braiding. It just made it so much easier for not only my grip, but for also the hair to be really nice and tight. I find that with my hair, if it's not got a really nice like smoothing product on it, it will be frizzy. So I didn't want that for this look. For the start of each cornrow, I would plait the hair a couple times so that it had a really good start, and then start to cornrow and add hair. And for each cornrow, I made sure to add the braiding hair after about 5 or 6 cornrows so that it was really flat to my head. I did try to add braiding hair to the beginning of my cornrows, but it made them so bulky. So I started off without any braiding hair, and then maybe like 5-6 times into the braid, that's when I would start to add the braiding hair pieces. To make sure the hair stayed a consistent size throughout, I would add little pieces of braiding hair as I went down, and also kept using Shine and Jam to smooth my hair into the braiding hair. This way you didn't really see like my hair poking out so much of it and making it look frizzy. And for length, for for this hairstyle, what I decided to do was, as I'd done the front first, I kind of set the length with the front of the hair, and then I would match up the rest of the hair to the front length of the hair. I hope that makes sense. But basically I would use the front as a guide for the rest of the hair, of like how much braiding hair should be added, how long I wanted it to be, you know. Shine and jam really will be your best friend for this hairstyle, because you just need to make sure that there's no hairs that aren't supposed to be there in the braid. But here you can see a close-up of me doing the initial plait at the front of the braid, and then starting to add the hair and cornrow the hair down to my scalp. And I add little tiny pieces as I cornrow. I will be moving around, up, down, left, right. Like, the way that I braid is so funny to me. But I use my pinky finger to hold the hair as I add it to one of the back sections, and then I can kind of loop it into the cornrow. If you guys want me to do a more detailed tutorial on how to cornrow, please let me know. As you can see here, those first two came out beautifully. These last two, they need to be redone. Also, I noticed that there was more of a taper, so I wanted to taper down that first braid to make it thinner, basically. So here I am just undoing those braids, and I'm just literally going to redo them the same way that I did those first two. So just enjoy watching me do that. I made sure to keep this clip in because I wanted to show you guys that braiding and cornrowing, it really takes time, and even if you've been cornrowing for years, you can still make mistakes so easily. So here I'd started the braid, I was starting by plaiting, and then I started to cornrow the hair. But as I was cornrowing, I realized that I'd included some of the hair that I'd parted away, and this is why like clips and grips are so important for when you're cornrowing your own hair. Like, you need to make sure that you use a lot of shine and jam, a lot of clips, to make sure that you're not getting like extra pieces that don't need to be in that braid. And however you feel comfortable, clearly I feel comfortable leaning my head back. However you feel comfortable is how you add the hair, and just take your time. Like the slower you go, the better the braid will always be, I find anyway. Once you've done that top middle section, you want to start on the sides. Now I started at the bottom on the sides. I think it made the most sense to me to work from the bottom to the top, and I did one cornrow at the very base of that section, going straight back. I had already done the other side, so I was just making sure to match them up to either side. Please make sure there's like some symmetry within this style. I think it really helps the style to like look very geometric when you make sure there's symmetry between each side. And I just followed the same way that I'd done my cornrows previously. So I did my first plait at the beginning, continued to cornrow, and then I would start adding hair about 5 or 6 passes through. I decided to do one side of my head first so that I could get an understanding of like how exactly I wanted my braid pattern to go. So using that side as like a base to reference everything to was really helpful, and I would highly recommend that because it just meant that this other side was a lot easier to do. So here I'm going to be doing those individual knotless braids that are triangle parts. I love triangle parts, guys. Triangle parts are so fun, but they are a little bit like just fiddly. And with a triangle part, you just want to make sure that you're doing a really wide base. I find that helps with my triangle parts to stay looking really neat. And then when you're braiding the hair, I use the 3 points of the triangle as my 3 starting points. I think it makes the most sense. I had to redo these quite a few times because for one, my hair at the front is like really thin. So when I'm adding the braiding hair, sometimes it would be really lumpy. So I had to use like smaller pieces of braiding hair at the front here to make sure that it didn't look lumpy and like weird. But when you're adding your braiding hair, whenever you're doing like a protective style like this, or if you're even just doing knotless braids, use like really small pieces of braiding hair to add. You don't need to be adding like thick and chunky pieces. Use really small pieces, little and often. It helps it to just like blend into your hair more. And enjoy just watching me finish the front portion of my hair. It's a process, guys. It's a process. As I said, it's so worth it. I absolutely love this hair and I would do it again. I would. So my hair at the front, especially in this section, is a little bit thin. So what I like to do now is, rather than trying to force my baby hairs into my braids, I will take my baby hairs out and like literally lay them how I want them to lay. so that I can do my cornrows, do my braids without interrupting my baby hairs. I kind of noticed that a lot of stylists that I was watching on Instagram or on TikTok were doing this, like removing or laying the baby hairs before they do the hairstyle. I think it makes a lot of sense. Like, now that I do it, now that I've started doing it, honestly, I would not go back. It helps so much, especially like if you have a thin hairline like me and you're trying to grip up your baby hairs and that your baby hairs keep slipping out of the braid and it makes it look extra messy. Like, no, just like take them out from the beginning. It makes so much sense, guys. This was the evening of that same day, and I had finished the front section, finally started the back section, and I realized that I was gonna need some help at the back. I was gonna need some help because I couldn't see what I was doing. I didn't have a three-way mirror at this time, so I enlisted my sister's help to help me to part these braids out. I asked her to basically create the rows for me so that when I was doing my hair myself, because obviously she's not going to be able to like stay there and do my hair for me, I would just be able to do the individual sections rather than having to like try and get a really straight row at the back of my head. That's the hardest part. So she parted my hair into all of these rows, as you can see, and then what I would do is part them into individual squares from there, which was really, really helpful. Thanks, sis, for helping me. The back section of this hairstyle is literally just individual knotless braids. So following a very similar to the front, but you start off with a braid, you do about 1 or 2 braids, and then you start to add the hair. You add the hair though with the knotless braids pretty much straight away. That way that your root doesn't look really thin compared to like the rest of the braid, and it blends into your hair better.
You would think my hair is done. It's not. I went to work with my hair half done.
Yeah, it's tragic, absolutely tragic. I went to work with my hair half done. I haven't done this in so long, but you know, it'd be like that sometimes. It really took a long time for me to do the back of my hair, guys. So I had this little piece left and I was like, you know what? Let me just do this as quick as I possibly can. I'd come home from work and I was so tired, but I was like, let me just get on with this. So throughout this whole process, I had actually been watching Insecure from the beginning, which was really fun for me. Actually, I really love Insecure and I loved reliving it, especially since it's finished now. It's just iconic. So I finished watching Insecure while I finished my hair, and I would just take each piece one by one, take it one step at a time, take it one braid at a time, and just plait. I, at this point, kind of gave up on like the parts being the sharpest. That's why I think it's important to do the front section of your hair first, because that way you don't like give up. But yeah, in the end, it was so worth it. It's just, you know, it's a process, guys. It really is a process. Don't expect to be done in 2 hours. No, like this took me 3 days, and in total I think it took about 10 to 12 hours. So that's what you should expect. Here are the final results. Look at her. Oh my goodness, she looks beautiful. Thank you so much for watching, coming on this journey with me. If you enjoyed this video, please do like, comment and subscribe. I'll see you in my next video, and sending blessings and love for all of you.